What's up, y'all? Marley Cross 316 back with another comic book flashback. Today we're looking at the Ultimate Spider-Man issue number 3. Today's issue is Wannabe. And so today we're going to be looking into more of the life of Peter Parker today. He has not officially become Spider-Man yet, but as we can see from this flashback here, how Peter Parker became Spider-Man. He was bitten by this spider. It's called the Arachnid Oz experiment number 00. And so Peter Parker, after being bitten by this spider, he was doomed to die. But because of the mixture of toxins and genealogy, Peter Parker was able to have his body basically compound these mixtures and toxins and become super strong. He became almost like a human spider in a way. And so it had the opposite effect. The bite had an opposite effect. He was supposed to die from this bite. But because of this bite, Peter Parker is pretty much the only person in existence that's been bitten by a spider like this, has lived from it, and has gained these unique abilities. And so as we look on these video screens here, it is directed by none other than Norman Osborn. And as we can tell from last issue, Norman Osborn is pretty amazed as how Peter Parker was able to gain this super strength, this spider-like ability. And now, as we come to find out in this issue, that Norman Osborn wants to repeat the accident. He wants to repeat the Oz accident, and this time he wants to do it under scientific environments. And everybody's like, well, what are you meaning? Who's going to be the test subject? The test subject is going to be none other than Norman Osborn himself. And so that's the big thing that we're going to be finding out in this issue. What's going to happen with Norman Osborn? Well, we won't find out too soon, but I'll just tell you that he is going to experiment on himself in this issue, and we'll see the repercussions of it, whether he gains a spider-like ability like Peter Parker or something much worse may happen. We'll come to find out later on next issue. But the main thing we're going to focus on in this issue today is Peter Parker. You know, he's wanting to look for some money, and we have all these kids from high school here. They're just coming and watching a wrestling match, and this big guy named Crusher Hogan, he's like the champion of this organization. It's UCW Wrestling. And Crusher Hogan basically is telling, threatening people, as this is just a normal thing for wrestlers. They'll be like, you're just puny, you can't do nothing, I'm the strongest in the world. He's just being the heel wrestler as he is. And we have this ring announcer here, and he's basically saying anybody that can come up against Crusher Hogan, defeat him, they will get $500. And so we have Kong here, and I don't know why, but Kong does not look like a high school student, but he is a high school student. We don't know how old he is. We would have to say he's at least probably 15 or 16 years old. I've never seen a bald high school student, but whatever. And so Kong tries to get in the ring. The ring announcer's not having any of it. He says you have to be 21 or up. Sorry, you had driver's license. A pretty cool thing right here. Peter Parker's intrigued about it. He's like, I have this spider-like ability now, and so why not use it to my advantage? So Peter Parker's thinking about it. We have Flash Thompson here. Remember, he broke his hand from last issue. He tells Peter Parker jokingly to get into the ring, and then Peter Parker's like, well, why don't you get in the ring? And then if you hurt the guy or he hurts you, then your family can sue him as well. And so remember from last issue that Flash Thompson's family has sued Peter Parker's family, which is Uncle Ben and Aunt May, because of Peter Parker breaking Flash Thompson's hand from last issue. And so still there's that rivalry going on between Peter Parker and Flash Thompson. And so here we go. We have Peter Parker. He's looking at some clothes here. He's taking off his glasses. And this is where we're finally going to get to see, Peter Parker actually start trying on costumes, putting on the Spider-Man persona here. And so he's thinking about wrestling Crusher Hogan in the next match here. And so what happens? He's going to actually jump into the ring the next day and fight Crusher Hogan. and the ring announcer can't do nothing about it. I mean, Peter Parker, dressed up as this spider-like person here, jumps into the ring all of a sudden, and look what happens. We have Peter Parker here. He lifts Crusher Hogan, and Crusher Hogan, he looks to be at least 200 something pounds, and slams him on the mat. And so the ring announcer is just astonished. And so here we go. We have Peter Parker in disguise. He takes the $500 from the ring announcer, and the ring announcer is basically like, "Can you meet me up on Monday for another, match? Because we would love to have you here in UCW." And so we have Peter Parker here being very anonymous. He said, "Oh, you'll see me on Monday." And he said, "How will I reach you?" He said, "Oh, you'll know who I am." And another thing we've come to find out in this issue is that Aunt May and Uncle Ben are receiving cash. Remember, they're dealing with just this big, being sued and stuff. But we have the faculty of Peter Parker's school sending money to Uncle Ben and Aunt May here. And it's just out of a generous heart here that they're doing that. And so Aunt May and Uncle Ben are pretty astonished to see how all the faculty at school are feeling pretty bad at what happened with Peter Parker. And so they think he's a good guy. They think he's a good student. So they're going to send money to Uncle Ben and Aunt May. So it's pretty generous right here. Another thing we come to find out here is that Peter Parker has been doing very well in basketball. We remember from issue number 1 how lousy of a basketball player he was, but now we have the coach confronting Peter Parker, and now the coach wants Peter Parker to play in the game. He wants Peter Parker to essentially join the basketball team. And so Peter Parker's like, "Oh, I don't know." Flash Thompson comes and he's like, "No way, man, no way. I'm a part of the team." But we know now that because Flash Thompson has his arm broken, that he can't be a part of the team until next season. And the coach really needs another player because they're short. So because of this, Peter Parker agrees just to make Flash Thompson mad. So what happens the next day? We have the game here. One basket made after another. We have thump, 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 thump. Just Peter Parker dunking these balls like nothing. It's 114-26. And Peter Parker being the star player of this game. Mary Jane Watson also noticing how good of a player he is. We have Uncle Ben and Aunt May in the stands as well. They can't believe it. And so we remember I didn't get to mention this in the other panels, but Mary Jane wants to invite Peter Parker to do homework together. They have a geometry assignment. And so she comes up to him the next day and she's like, "So are you up for doing the geometry thing on Monday?" But then Peter Parker remembers that he has to do a wrestling match in disguise. He doesn't tell Mary Jane about this, but he says, "I got a thing to do." He's like, "I can't make it." And Mary Jane takes it as that he doesn't want to hang out with her. And so she's pretty upset about it and she leaves, and Peter Parker doesn't have really much to say. He feels bad for what he's done, but he wants to, show off his unique abilities in the wrestling match. So then on Monday night, we have Peter Parker fighting Crusher Hogan once again. And this time, once again, Spider-Man here slams Crusher Hogan on the mat. And so once again, they're like, "Oh, what's your stage name?" And like, "I don't know, the Spider?" And then everybody's like, "All right, here's the Amazing Spider-Man. No, ladies and gentlemen, the Spectacular Spider-Man." And so this is how Peter Parker receives the Spider-Man name. It's because of him fighting Crusher Hogan. And so it sticks with him. He's like, Spider-Man, that's a pretty unique name. I think I'll stick with it. And so we have Peter Parker here. He collects the cash. The ring announcer still doesn't know who this guy is. He's like, "What's your name? This anonymous stuff is for the birds." And we have Peter Parker here. He's like, "Oh, don't worry about it." And so he's like, "Well, if I'm going to see you next Monday, I need you to have this." And so here we go. We're going to finally see Peter Parker try on the Spider-Man outfit that we all know and love. And the only thing different is that he doesn't have a spider logo and it doesn't have its webs. But we have Peter Parker here actually saying, you know what, it'd be pretty cool if I added a spider here and also had webs on this costume. So we'll see that in the coming issues if he adds that to the costume. And now back to Norman Osborn here. Remember, he's wanting to inject himself with the Oz specimen. So here we go. We have Norman Osborn experimenting on himself, and we have his son coming in. His son's like, "What's going on here?" And they tell him to get out. And so we'll find out next issue as to what happens with Norman Osborn when he injects himself with this Oz specimen. It doesn't look good as he's screaming in a lot of pain. So we'll come to find out next issue as we look at number 4. Hope to see you then. And until next time, God bless.